there were actually some studies done on this in the 1970s in, I'm going to fuck this up, but it's Överkalix, Sweden, I think it was. These guys, Pembury and Bergen, they go there, and what they notice was what they call, let me look here real quick. What they noticed was this phenomenon that was called the Transgenerational Response, okay? And so in the Transgenerational Response, what that is they observe that the grandkids of people who lived throughout essentially famine-type conditions in this little town in Överkalix, Sweden, where they had crop failures for many years. And this happened a lot, probably because of the economy, probably because, who knows, right? But they had these crop failures all of these different years. And what they noticed was that the grandkids of the people who essentially suffered through these crop failures, that those grandkids were actually much healthier than the grandkids of the people who lived in times where there were no crop failures and all of these, foods of what Weston Price would call modern civilization, where those foods were abundant. So why is that important? Well, what essentially they're doing is they're making a connection between food availability and the ability of your genes to thrive, right? We're talking about epigenetics here, okay? Epigenetics, the study that above genetics, that you actually control your genetics, that genetics, essentially, they're a blueprint, but that blueprint is only really expressed like 5% of the time. Essentially, your environment dictates what essentially the expression of your genes, okay? This is technically called, what is it? Okay. So that's transgenerational response, okay? So why is that important? Because what's happening right now is a reflection of that. What they specifically found was this time called the slow growth period. So the slow growth period was these age periods of a person's life that their nutrition directly affected the health of the grandkids. Okay, so we're talking about the transgenerational response. So what they were able to do was narrow it down. For boys, it was between 9 and 12. And for girls, it was between 8 and 11 years old. So ladies, your nutrition during the years of 8 years old to 11 years old in your life will directly affect the health of your grandkids. And for guys, it was between 9 and 12. So for these people who live in this little town, Överkalix, the people who lived through those famine periods, who didn't have access to grains and potatoes, and probably, heavily processed foods or whatever, their grandkids were very healthy. And the same thing for the women who suffered through those famines between the years of 8 and 11. So what they call this period that you're a kid, just before you basically hit puberty, they call it the slow growth period. So your diet during your slow growth period actually gets encoded into your DNA, and then that's passed on to your kids and to your grandkids. So as we see all of these kids now, who are dealing with peanut allergies, that are dealing with gluten allergies. And I mean, adults are dealing with the same thing. Peanuts and gluten are really two terrible foods for anybody. But now the kids are so much more sensitive to it.